This week at the owners' meeting, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch had a lot to say. We'll be breaking that down tonight on the Hammer and Nayls Show. Hello, everybody. It is Thursday night. Welcome. That means one thing. Thursday nights mean the Hammer and Nayls Show. I am Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, and as always, with me tonight is my partner, Jessie Naylor. How you doing, Jessie?
I'm doing fantastic, Jack. It is episode 50 we're on? That's crazy to think about that. Actually, you know what? I want to run back episode 49 because it was such a good episode. We're going to run back 49 because technically there was one co-host sit-in. Amin the Dream sat in for me when I was out of town one week. So right. Technically 49, we're running it back tonight. Let's do it.
There you go. And it's funny. Earlier today, I saw actually goes along with one of our topics tonight. And I was looking for through some of our old videos to find a certain guest that we had on. And it's funny how much different this thing has changed from a year ago. How much different you look, how much different I look, how much different the whole thing, the production looks as far as the banners and everything like that. So good times. You know, down at the 49ers were down at the owners meeting. John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan were down there. They were, they had they each had a press meeting. John Lynch was on Monday, Kyle Shanahan on Tuesday. That's where we're going to get started, is kind of going through there. But I wanted to, first off, kind of get your impression or get your ideas, and we'll just take it from there.
Yeah. So it was funny because after Monday and John Lynch spoke, everybody lost their mind. I swear 49ers social media went crazy. Fans, my show got a ton of views that night because fans went absolutely crazy. And, you know, I broke down everything that he had said and John Lynch, that is, and he said exactly what I expected him to say. He's not going to come out and say that they messed up. He's not going to say that we're cutting Jimmy. He's not going to say that we have just basically screwed this whole thing up, right? And so when you think about it that way, was there anything that John Lynch really said that surprised you? Like, to me, I wasn't surprised by anything that John Lynch said. This is what John Lynch does. He answers around in circles. He will ask himself a question and answer it mid-conversation. Like, this is what John Lynch does. He's the general manager for a reason, because he really can address the media well and not say a lot. So people were very upset with that. But I think once we got to Tuesday, it was a much different story. And you just look at the size of the quotes. If you look at the quotes that these guys made, everything was pretty short and sweet from John Lynch. But you look at Shanahan and it's like 2 paragraphs every time he's asked a question. And that's just the way that he talks. He talks and talks and over talks. But I thought he said quite a few different things. And maybe it's because he's the coach, maybe, you know, whatever. But they were both lockstep that they're not going to just give Jimmy away. They feel like Jimmy's too much of an asset to just dump for nothing. Right. We did see that. But when it came to who the starting quarterback is, I just felt like Shanahan was so much different than what he was last year. If you listen to the way that he's talking about Trey Lance now versus last year, it really is night and day. And the first thing he said, everybody wants to talk about, you know, how he kept going on and they pulled a quote where he said something along the lines of, you know, he'll start eventually, Trey Lance. But if you listen to the sooner rather than later. Yeah. But the first thing he said is, yes, that's why we're trying to trade Jimmy. And I'm paraphrasing. That's why we're trying to trade Jimmy, or tried to trade Jimmy. I believe that he'll be the starter like now, basically, is what it sounded like. And then he clarified later. And so to me, when you look at those quotes and you compare them to last May, last June, July, August, really all through the year, this is a very, very different sounding Kyle Shanahan when it comes to Trey Lance and him being the starter. And so I don't know how everybody else felt, but I personally, once he was done speaking that day, I said, all right, I'm not even going to talk about, oh my gosh, what if Jimmy starts? What are they doing? Like that, I've put out of my mind. For me, I'm still upset. You know, I can understand people being upset about him being on this team, whatever. I understand that frustration. But if your frustration is, what if he starts? I think that you're misplacing that frustration because I think Shanahan, without outright telling you, said that Trey Lance is the planned starter.
Yeah, no, for sure. I got that on Monday from John Lynch. I felt like they're not going to come out and just tell you outright. But from what I heard from John Lynch on Monday, I felt pretty certain that what he was saying was that this is Trey Lance's job to lose. I felt that's what I heard from him. And then I think from what I heard from Kyle Shanahan just further reinforced that thought in terms of it is his job. And, you know, they're both dancing around it, acting like there's going to be a quarterback competition. But I highly doubt, and I said this a couple different times, I wrote it yesterday, I don't foresee a situation where Jimmy Garoppolo is in camp with the 49ers when they start training camp. This is Trey Lance's job, and the only way that he loses it is if he just is a complete disaster during OTAs and minicamp, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen either. I'm trying to find the actual.
Breaking up
quote because. Oh, sorry, hold on. Can you hear me or no?
I can't. It's really messed up on my end.
Okay. Sorry. Here, let me see if this will fix it. All right. Is that better or no?
Say it again.
Is that better or no?
Yeah, I don't hear you. I can't hear you very well.
Okay.
There you go. That was better.
Better?
That's better.
What's going on? Better? Yeah. Good. We good?
Yeah. You're better now.
Or no?
Yes.
Okay.
You're better now. It was
really
staticky.
I wonder if it's because I had an app open. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I was trying to open up the actual quote, and for some reason that was messing with my sound. But sorry, guys. I was trying to find the specific quote because there was a very, very specific thing that he said, and it was, to me, it was so clear. But yeah, listen. Here's what people don't understand. People want to hear, we're going to cut Jimmy, right? And if they're trying to trade him for anything, then that's not what you're going to hear at all. That's not at all what you're going to hear. And in fact, this is like, okay, the other option is this. They can cut him when he gets healthy to save that $7.5 million, which is most likely what they're going to do, to your point. But they can't talk about that now because Jimmy's injured. This isn't a post-June cut, right? This isn't a post-June cut where you can designate somebody later. No, this is, you've got a player that's injured that is owed $7.5 million if you cut him. So if you talk about cutting him now, that's against league rules. You can't do that because all the player has to do is come back and say, well, hold on a second. You had this plan to cut me all along. The only reason you held on to me was so that you wouldn't have to pay me any money. And now I've got no team to go to and having a chance in being a starter because it's August. And B, I didn't get any money from you. Like, that's against league policy. So people have got to understand that they're not going to just say that. They're either just going to tell you and then we're just going to find out one day that he's been cut, or they're going to act as if he's got value and he means something to him. So people have got to stop being frustrated with it. This is the decision the 49ers have made, right, wrong, or indifferent. And it's a little annoying, but they've been doing this crap since 2017. This is what the 49ers do. They do not get the quarterback position right. They just don't.
Well, they're getting it right. They're going to get it right, and that they're going to have Trey Lance. That's the get it right part. They the mistake that they made here goes back to week 18. That's where the decision. That's where the mistake was made, because that's the point in which they decided they were going to continue to ride with Jimmy Garoppolo, and then Garoppolo injures his shoulder 2 weeks later against Dallas, and then continues to play with that injured shoulder. So the mistake isn't happening now. The mistake happened back in January. If we're going to try to travel, figure out where this mistake goes, it's not now. It's back when they continued with Garoppolo, after he hurt his thumb, and then, after Lance played the way that he did against Houston. If their belief is that, if they really believe in Trey the way that they say they believe, and I think they believed in him then, the mistake was made back in January. It got them to the NFC Championship game, but now they're stuck with a guy that they can't trade because of the injury. And I truly believe that the whole reason that he's not traded is because of the shoulder. It's not because he's garbage. I just think it's, if you're going to trade for a quarterback that's not a Peyton Manning or somewhere along those lines, you're going to want to make sure that the guy has the ability to throw the football.
Do you really believe that even though the shoulder injury is there, that he had zero value? And I mean zero, when it either zero or like not even a future 7th round pick. I'm not saying a little value. I'm saying zero value. Nobody would have offered anything if the 49ers didn't set a limit on things.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one, because again, I go back to the teams that were available. Do I want to make a trade for a guy who can't throw the ball until July? Right? Do I want to set myself up right now and do that, or do I want to see what else is out there and bring a guy in? I don't, maybe somebody offered him a 5th or a 6th or a 7th or something like that. I could see. I don't know if I totally buy their story that they weren't offered anything officially.
Yeah, and I also think that could technically be true that you weren't officially offered anything. But if Jack, if you're the Colts and you come to me and you're like, hey, what's going on with Jimmy? And I go, yeah, we're considering moving him. We want 2 seconds. And you're like, okay, well, are you willing to budge? And I'm like, nope, that's pretty much the value. You're like, all right, we'll see you later. Like, you may have been interested. You didn't offer. Maybe you were going to throw out a 6th or a 5th or whatever because he's injured, but I didn't even give you the opportunity to negotiate. And you're not going to waste your time. You're not going to insult me or try to go back and forth and reason with me. I'm basically telling you I'm unreasonable. So sure, I could believe a scenario where they got no offer technically. That doesn't mean a team wasn't willing to offer, even if it was a crappy pick, according to the 49ers standards. And so, yeah, I think the shoulder thing certainly drove down value, but also, even when he's healthy, the fact that there's no teams that can compete against each other also drives down value. So it's like, to me, I don't know, man. The reason Jimmy's here is not because of the shoulder injury. The reason Jimmy's here is because the 49ers have chosen to keep Jimmy here and not budge off the value. And that, I guess that's another thing I did get from the press conference from Lynch. He did say 2 different ways, we weren't willing to budge. We have a value in mind. We're not willing to budge. So yeah, sure. I'm sure you didn't get an offer if that's what you're portraying to teams as they're trying to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, both guys talked about that. Shanahan talked about that a little bit too. He didn't get asked that quite as much because that's not his role, but he did talk about being okay with keeping him on the roster and until they do, doing what's best for the 49ers and all that kind of stuff. Kind of along the same lines as what Lynch said. It was that his part of that was similar. I'm looking forward to the Garoppolo thing being over with, because I'm getting tired of talking about him, even though I do kind of like the fact that we can talk. He gives us a talking point. I am looking forward to moving past that, because it's one of those conversations where I don't know. None of us know the exact right answer. I do feel like the 49ers, if they were offered something smaller, cool. I do think he has value. I don't, my thing with Garoppolo is I think he's going to be gone, like I said, and he's going to get traded to the Carolina Panthers once he's healthy.
Yeah, shoot. I hope you're right. If they can get anything for him, I'll take it. I'll definitely take it.
Well, it all makes sense. It makes sense that they're going to have, it's either going to happen, that would happen like say early July. He comes back, he starts to throw the ball. They can see him throw the ball a little bit, what have you. They make the trade, At that point, you're still a couple weeks away from the start of training camp. You usually don't have your rookies signed to their contracts usually until right before camp anyway. That allows the 49ers to free up the cap space to sign their rookies and everything else, and everybody moves on along the way. And maybe the 49ers even bring back Sam Darnold or whatever. I don't think that's the case, or that's what they'll do. But I just have a feeling that that's the direction that we're headed. He's going to get traded in early July once he can pass a physical and once he's healthy and everything like that.
Yeah, for sure. And traded, cut, whatever. That's a lot of money that they'll be able to save and hopefully roll some of that over to next year, right? I can't foresee them spending all that money. So having a big chunk to roll over, I think would be fantastic. And or having a big amount set aside so that you can make a mid-season trade, maybe like they did for an Emmanuel Sanders. Let's say Trey's looking really good and they're like, oh crap, we really should have gone all in. Now there's some people available. Let's go make it happen. They will have those opportunities available to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And since you mentioned that, let's just talk about that now. Let's talk about going all in. This is something that's crept. We've been hearing this conversation throughout the offseason, since over the last 2 weeks, we've been hearing about this all in thing. And it started creeping up again today, and it's become a big topic of conversation because the Rams were able to sign Bobby Wagner from Seattle, the free agent from Seattle. They added him down there. I think it's interesting because when people talk about the Rams and going all in, I think they forget that the Rams were 7 and, they bring up, here's the thing. They talk about the Rams going all in last year to win the Super Bowl. They made one move last year that they got them there. And now during free agency, really, and that during that time period, and it was the trade to get Matthew Stafford. Mm-hmm. They talk about the wide receiver Odell Beckham that they brought in, and they talk about the Von Miller addition. The Rams were 7-2 before either of those trades went down. They were 7-2, second in the NFC behind the Arizona Cardinals. They'd already beaten the Buccaneers at that point. This wasn't a team that was went all in during the offseason and made a bunch of moves, splashy moves and all that kind of stuff. They had re-signed their own guys to big contracts. Their one big offseason move was Matthew Stafford, but everybody else came through the trade route during the middle of the season, which is just like you were saying. You were 7-2, Rod. You were 7-1. You were 7-2. The trade for Von Miller went down when you were 7-2. The next week you came to the 49ers and you lost and you fell to 7-3. Von Miller's first game was the week against the 49ers. So,
Rod, come on, man. You can't let us know more about your team. You're showing your fake fandom right now.
As far as, you got to remember the first game that those guys, that they played was against the 49ers. They were 7-2 and they came in and played against the 49ers. So you can say whatever you want as far as what their record was when they made the moves. As far as the actual first game that they played, they were 7-2 when they came in and played the 49ers. They lost. They fell to 7-3. They were 7-2 without them. They went 5-4 during the regular season with them.
Yep.
They did better in the offseason. And once again, I will also say that the biggest addition the Rams made was Matthew Stafford. If you want to go through what got the Rams to the Super Bowl, got them the win. First off, it's Matthew Stafford playing lights out against the 49ers, other than a tip ball at the line of scrimmage at the end zone. He got lucky on the drop by Jaquiski Tartt, but he made big throw after big throw. The biggest reason that the Rams beat the 49ers, other than Matthew Stafford, was Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't hit a broadside of a barn. And
which happens quite a bit.
Yeah, and and a safety that the Rams signed after week 18 helped shut down the 49ers run game.
Yeah, you're right. So
those are the big moves.
Okay, so all right. How do I ask this question? Do you think it's possible that kind of both sides of this argument are right here in saying that the 49ers are better, but they're not necessarily going all in? And not that you have to, right? I know that here's the thing is everybody wants to make the Rams comparison. And what you're saying, I think, is right. It's the wrong comparison to make because the Rams have quote unquote gone all in, But the Rams also, since 2017, have had the most draft picks from the second round on. So they've built the team through the draft as well, really primarily. Now they've made some big trades throughout the years, the Jalen Ramsey, the Cooks, the Talib, all those things. But at the end of the day, this was the first year that they went like true all in and said, okay, not only have we not cared about the first round picks, but now we don't care about second and third. And we're making that move mid-season because we feel like we can win a Super Bowl. So to me, yes, that is an all-in move, but it's not necessarily all in free agency. And really, I think the 49ers did something similar because in 2019, during that offseason, they went and got D Ford. Now, whether the move was right or wrong, it doesn't matter. Did they go all in or try to go all in? Yes.
Mhm.
They went and got D Ford, and they went and signed Quan Alexander. That was during the offseason. Then they got into the season, and they traded for Emmanuel Sanders. Those were all in moves. Now, it resulted in a Super Bowl loss, but they really thought that they could win a Super Bowl after they started out as hot as they did, and they went and upgraded their team. They went all in. Then they wanted to keep things together. They lose Staley, they go get Trent Williams. I feel like that's kind of trying to stay all in. Again, it doesn't work, but you're praising a team for it working, for the end result. If the Rams had lost in the NFC Championship, or let's say they got to the Super Bowl and lost, you'd be making fun of them. Ha ha, told you that it would come back and bite you in the butt. Now you don't have any picks. What are you going to do? Like, that would be the conversation. So I feel like, to your point, the Rams are the wrong all in to talk about. Yes, they just won a Super Bowl. But that being said, I think it's possible that the 49ers are better. And I do think they are better now than the end of the season. We talked about that a week or two ago. That being said, I still think they have an opportunity to go all in if they had gotten rid of Jimmy for whatever that looks like, trade, cut, I don't know, and then signed one more player, right? Now, that doesn't mean they still can't go all in. We just talked about a way that they can go all in. They get rid of Jimmy. They get 5 games in. They're like, oh, wow, Lance is further along than what we thought. This team looks really good. Boom. They make a trade, or somebody gets cut. They sign that, whatever that looks like. So it doesn't mean they can't still go all in, but I don't think that they have gone as all in so far as what they should by the time that this thing plays out, right? Because I really feel like there are a lot of teams in the AFC that are going crazy, and that's awesome. But the NFC really is wide open. Yes, the Rams just got Wagner, but they lost Von Miller, they lost a corner, and they lost their left tackle. They don't have any picks in the top 100. I'm not positive that team is better. I'm really not, okay? I think best case scenario, they're roughly the same team, right? Different positions, but they're the same. And the Cardinals have gotten worse. The Packers have gotten worse. Tampa's probably better off now than they were at the end of the season just because of all the injuries, but their team is roughly the same. And the 49ers have gotten better as well. So right now, I think it's a 3-team race to win the NFC. At some point, whether it's now or before the trade deadline, I do want to see them go all in because I really think this is an opportunity, and you never know when that window is going to close. You just don't.
Yeah. And that's kind of along the lines of what I was getting at in terms of you had mentioned like some of the in-season trades and things like that. And that's what the Rams have done. The Rams moves haven't been big free agency off-season moves. They've mostly been moves that have been during the season. And that's what we saw. I mean, we saw the Flyers make some big moves in 2019. They definitely felt some pressure there to get better, made some moves. We know that in the long term, they didn't pay out. They paid off, get to help them get to the Super Bowl. But they didn't win the Super Bowl. They didn't win the big one, the quarterback. Kind of the same situation that they were in this last year. And I think that, as I mentioned earlier, if I'm correct in that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be gone by training camp, that frees up the cash to go and do exactly what you said right before we started this piece, right? Which is go out and make a big move in the season to add a piece here or there. to make them better. I like the Wagner move for Los Angeles. He's definitely better than the guy that he's replacing. I don't think that he's the same guy that everybody remembers from his time in Seattle, but Wagner is definitely better than Troy Reeder. Troy Reeder's awful. So they definitely upgraded themselves at inside linebacker to the extent we'll find out. Again, I think the Rams' biggest acquisition last year was when they brought in Eric Weddle, and Eric Weddle knows how to fit in the run scheme and just shut down the 49ers run game in the NFC Championship game, and the 49ers didn't have a quarterback that could make him pay. Mm-hmm. And so I think if you go back and if you were to replay that game with everything exactly the same, with a quarterback that can make the throw, the 49ers win that game going away. And that's what I expect out of Trey Lance.
Yeah, and I do too, and so that's where we're at, right? And so, like I said, I feel like people are on one side or the other. It's like, well, the 49ers are better, and you got a group saying, well, they're not going all in, but they're better, and it's like, well, yeah, that's both can be true. It's okay, like to just agree that yeah, maybe both are possible, but I also think that again. It's one thing, and really it was just talking through it with you where I kind of realized, like, wait a minute, 2019 when they went all in, they made some moves, sure, but they waited a few games to see where they're at, and then they're like, oh man, we're much better than what we possibly thought we were. We got a shot here. Let's make a trade. And so the 49ers still have a chance to quote unquote go all in. Now they're not doing it the way that fans wanted to see it. They're not doing it on the fans' time. And so that can be frustrating. I understand that, but it doesn't mean that they don't have an opportunity to still go all in at some point.
Yeah. And then here's one last thing that I'm gonna ask you some questions on this all in thing, because one of the other thing that comes up a lot when we talk about all in, right? The 49ers should be going all in right now. If Eddie DeBartolo was the owner of the 49ers, they'd be going all in, right? Okay, so since the salary cap started in 1994, we know that Eddie DeBartolo went all in 94, completely revamped that team so they could beat the Cowboys, and it worked out, right? Okay.
Yes.
Does that mean that Eddie DeBartolo, did he go all in 95?
How about 96? They weren't able to re-sign those guys that they lost quite a bit, right?
How about 97? 98? Maybe 99. Okay. And the only reason I'm saying that is because they win it all in 94. Great. They kind of were ahead of the curve. If we want to be realistic about what happened in 94, it was the first year of the salary cap. The 49ers were so far ahead of everybody with the way that the cap was going to work. They did things money-wise that other teams didn't realize could happen, right? And they got ahead of the curve and they won the Super Bowl. Awesome. It was a great year. I'm not going to complain about it. I think it was fantastic. But then 95 hits and they lose their first playoff game. 96 hits, they're out in the divisional round again. 97 hits, they get to the championship game and lose. 98 divisional round. 99, they were 4-12. They never did it again. And so if we're going to use Eddie DeBartolo, though, I guess my point with that is just because you spend big doesn't mean that you're going to win. Because I would feel like, I think if I went back and looked at it, I would probably say that DeBartolo went all in all those seasons. It just didn't work out. Their team started getting worse. They started losing money, and their quarterback was still at the top of his game, but they just didn't have the money for the defensive side because they were starting to pay so much dead cap and things like that. It happens. It just happens in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is this, and regardless of how it came, we can talk about some of the teams, right? And there's some teams that have really improved this offseason, mainly in the AFC. Mm-hmm. But if you just take top tier talent, the 49ers have it, right? They have George Kittle. They have Deebo Samuel. They have Fred Warner. They have Bosa. They have Trent Williams. Oddly enough, 4 out of those 5 have been first-team All-Pros. The one that isn't is Bosa, but I don't think anybody would argue that he's not on that level. So when you have 5 guys that recently have been first-team All-Pros, That's pretty good. How many other teams can say that they have 5 guys on their team that within the last 3 seasons have been first team all pros? Probably not many. I would venture to say probably not more than 2 or 3, to be real with you. So they've got the talent. They do have the talent, and they have improved. And so, no, if it was up to me, I certainly, again, I'm just trying to look at it from the 49ers standpoint as well. But if it was up to me, yes, Jimmy would be off this team and they would have made some moves for sure. I'm not saying that you're not entitled to think those things, because I certainly still do think those things. But when I take a step back and I look at it from the 49ers point of view, I can understand why they are doing things the way that they're doing it. And yes, it's frustrating, but it doesn't mean that they aren't still doing the right thing when it's all said and done. And we'll see. It's a long time between now and the trade deadline. That's all I'll say. There's a lot of things that can happen.
It's a long way between now and the start of training camp, Jesse. Right?
That's what I'm saying, right?
We're still 4 months away, right? We're barely getting into April. Training camp starts at the end of July. We're a long way away from this thing being done. We don't even know what the schedule is right now, and you have people that are just like losing their minds over the 49ers. It's great, right? I love talking 49ers. It's good to have people that are there, but it's the I guess the thing for me. Here's the thing for me is I'm kind of getting a little worn out on the negativity on a daily basis that we see around 49ers. When you have a team that, like you just said, they have this is a talented team. It really is. So if that makes me David Lombardi 2.0 or whatever, so be it. But I'm telling you the way that I see the team. I feel that this is a team that is good, is going to get better at the most important position. They have, I think, one of the top wide receivers in the game. As their number one. They have a guy who could potentially be really good as their number 2. They just need to get him the ball down the field more often in Brandon Ayuk. They have one of the top tight ends in the game. It's been proven over and over again. They have, like, the highest paid left tackle in the league for a reason. They have one of the best defensive ends in the league for a reason. Their middle linebacker is one of the top defensive, linebackers in the league. Shoot, this is a really talented roster when you start going from top to bottom. And I think that on top of that, I think that we're going to see some rookies step up. I just do. I mean, obviously, I was saying, the funny part is I was talking about Aaron Banks and saying that he was going to step up before Kyle Shanahan said it yesterday or 2 days ago. Well,
that was the clear plan, right? Letting Lakin go and not bringing anybody else in. They clearly believed in the kid. Mm-hmm. Right. And we didn't, because we didn't see it, and that's fine. Right. And maybe he's not as good as Lakin. I don't know that he has to be, but they obviously did believe it. And Jack, let's just be very clear here. That I will talk trash, right? And I have no problem being quote unquote negative. But one thing I've always told you is that I'm going to tell you how I feel in the moment, right, wrong, indifferent. I'm going to be real about the situation. I'm not going to fake being upset if I'm not upset. I'm just not going to do that. That's not who I am. Everything I say in that moment, I feel that. That's the way that I'm feeling about the situation. So, yes, I know that there have been plenty of things throughout the offseason that have, I've said some negative things about it. But one thing I said before the offseason started is, this is the 6th time that they're doing this. I've got to trust what the 49ers are doing. Doesn't mean I'm not going to be critical, but at the end of the day, I'm going to put trust in what they're doing, right? So I'm trying to hold true to that. And I also think this whole all-in conversation probably wouldn't happen. If Jimmy was off this roster 2 weeks ago and they didn't sign anybody else, I bet you that frustration level would be a lot lower from fans. And I understand it. I don't want Jimmy here anymore either. That is the only thing that I'm like, oh, please get rid of this guy. He's been here forever. He's like an STD. I don't know. But at the same time, I'm not going to manufacture things for clicks or whatever. Like, oh, you're here for click. No, I'm just telling you how I feel in the moment. And right now I'm really after Kyle Shanahan on Tuesday, my mind is at ease. My only concern is, was Trey going to be the starter of this team? I feel like I've gotten the answer to that question, and I'm chill right now. Now, in a week, maybe they'll do something and piss me off. But for right now, I'm feeling pretty good about where the 49ers are going. And I'm trying to take a step back and figure out what the 49ers are doing, what their mindset is, and trying to see it from their lens. And the more that I do that, a couple days into this thing, the more I understand why they're doing what they're doing. It does make sense to me.
Yeah. No, and I'm not saying it's you. We have good
no. I'm not. No, and I want to be clear. You're not saying that. I get that a lot. Oh, you're here for clicks, clickbait. No, I've never been that. I've never done that.
Yeah. No, you and I argue about things, but it's usually not because of stuff like that. It's usually when you and I argue, it's usually on Twitter or whatever. It's usually a philosophical difference.
Mm-hmm.
Is usually what leads it to. It's not. And most 9 times out of 10, we don't get into calling each other names. I don't know. Other than me telling you that you're Trey Lance's PR man. But other than that,
but I am though. But is that really calling me? I don't even think that's an insult. You kind of are complimenting me, to be real.
Right, there you go. I mean, it's hard. It's funny because we had Trey Lance's coach on like 3 weeks into us doing this, which is really crazy to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to change the banner here really quick because it goes along with another topic, and it's Jed York said what? I'm bringing that up now because Double B Studio, thank you for the donation. He asked, can't believe the Niners front office is comparing this situation to the past. I think what he's saying is Jimmy ain't Joe and Trey ain't young yet. What the heck are they saying? Do you want to take this one first, or do you want me to be the one to take it?
No, go ahead. Go all in with this one.
Yeah, no. Oh, I'm going all in. See what you did right there? No, I think this is funny because I can understand seeing this quote, and I would have the same reaction too if I was just kind of not really paying attention and saw him saying that Jimmy and Joe or Steve and what happened between Joe and Steve is similar to what's going on with Jimmy and Trey. Come on, let's face it. Jimmy Garoppolo can't hold Joe Montana's jock, and at this he can't. And at this point, we don't even know if Trey Lance can hold Steve Young's jock, right? I mean, come on now, really, right? And but I don't think that's what he was. I don't think he was trying to say that they're the same. I think he's talking about the situation. I think what happened is that he's talking about a situation and he threw out these 2 big names and people are saying, well, wait, these guys aren't them. I think what he's trying to say is if they could just coexist, then these guys can coexist, because I think Joe and Steve had bigger personalities than Jimmy and Trey. I think that's what he was trying to say. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta imagine that's what he's trying to say.
I'd hope so, because otherwise we might have to have him in for a meeting or something.
Yeah, listen, that has to be what he was trying to say. He obviously minced his words or didn't clarify what he meant by that. But he's right to a certain extent. Again, one thing that did get glossed over, in my opinion,
mm-hmm.
and I don't know how true this is, but the fact that he said, I trust this regime. I trust what they're doing. I'm leaving it up to them. They're the football guys. That, if nothing else, everybody wants to take the other comment and run with it. And probably not the best thing to say. But at the same time, I said towards the tail end of last year that I actually gave Jed some credit. I felt like there was some growth there on his part. And when he makes a comment like, hey, ask those guys these questions. They're the football guys. I'm paying them to do the job. And if things get bad and we're not winning, then I'll step in. But for now, they're doing the right thing. So that is kind of what we've always wanted, right? Do we want a Jerry Jones owner that's got his hands in everything? How frustrated were we with Jed York when he was firing people after winning seasons and putting his hand? I mean, he was acting like he was the general manager. And so, no, we don't want that. So now that we get that from him, we're going to nitpick a comment like yes, the comment again, not the best, but overall, I think the most important thing that we should take away from the comment is he's letting the football guys do football things. And if that's the truth, then that's awesome. Like that's a good thing to hear also.
Yeah, and it's funny that as I'm listening to you talk about that, this is the first conversation I've had about his statements. That sounds kind of similar to his uncle, right? Now, here's the thing. Eddie DeBartolo, when he was the owner, he was known as a guy that didn't settle for anything other than winning. But I don't know how much Eddie got into trying to make decisions, like you're saying, like a Jerry Jones type, right? I don't think he was doing that very much. I do know that I do remember reading a story about how, like in 1986, when Bill Walsh kept trading back in the draft in the first round, basically traded out of the first round, he kept coming in the room trying to figure out when they were going to finally make a pick. He was getting a little frustrated with them, and finally Walsh told him, "Don't worry, we're gonna get you a Super Bowl team here," kind of thing. But it wasn't like he was trying to say you need to get player X, Y, and Z, like what we've heard from some of like what they do in Dallas, or what we've heard of from the awful ownership out in Washington, and so on and so forth. So if that's what he's doing, if he is allowing Shanahan and Lynch to do their jobs while holding their feet to the fire to win games, that's what his uncle did.
Yeah, and the only thing now, obviously, DeBartolo had a whole extra thing about him, and that's great. I'm not going to try to compare the two; like they're not comparable. But
no, we're not.
but
I'm not
DeBart,
saying
but,
that they're the same. I'm just saying that
no, and right, and I just want to clarify that for people because people will run with things, right? DeBartolo had this aura about him, this feel, this genuine intent about him that people really they could feel that, they could see that. He showed that. He was in the locker room showing these guys love. He really did set the tone when it came to like a family type atmosphere, right? And that's what made him special. But he's a once in a lifetime type of owner. Most owners aren't like that. They're not that into it, hands on, hands off in the right areas, but hands on in the right in the right areas, so like to me, they like players would say that they could go to him and have personal conversations about what was going on in life. That's not normal. That's not a normal thing. You don't have those skip level conversations like that in most organizations. Now, I would argue that probably some of the good ones, yeah, the some of the best organizations are like that, but not all organizations are like that. So to expect Jed to have that personality, I think is unfair. But the expectation is that you hold these guys accountable when they're not winning. Okay, you said that. We we'll see if they're not winning, we'll see if you hold them accountable. And that you're letting them do their job. Okay, well then you're still, if you're doing that and that is who you are from today forward, you're still in the top 20% of good ownership, in my opinion. So what more can you really ask for? There's a lot of crappy owners, is basically what I'm trying to say. Worse than Jed. That's really where I'm at. They could be the Washington Commanders. All right. So it could be a lot worse.
Yeah, the Commanders, that's a mess out there. And then Double B
or
Studio.
The Cowboys.
Yeah, true. The Cowboys too. Double B Studio jumps in again. Thank you again. He says the problem is sound like they want to keep Jimmy Garoppolo because of Joe Montana, not Tony Montana. LOL, because that's what he said earlier. That situation is not this is this, and they better not keep Jimmy Garoppolo. And that's and I do I think it's a lot of posturing from the 49ers right now. I do not think that we're going to see Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster later in the year once the season starts.
Yeah, and it does. It goes back to they cannot. First of all, they're still trying to prop him up as if there's a team they can trade to, right? So that is the effort right now. If that doesn't go through, I sure hope that they find a way to cut him and that they have the guts to do it. because that would be the right thing to do for the team. But again, they can't talk about cutting a player that has an injury guarantee when he's injured. It's against league rules. Like you just can't. You either have to cut him or act as if you're not going to cut him. That's the way that this works.
Right, right. And then just on another topic, really quick, let me pull it up. Or not another topic, but another comment that we had was from Blind Tom. Hey, Tom, how you doing? Blind Tom's he follows all the time, so it's good to see him in here. Thank you for the donation. He says they have the talent, but do they have the rank and file coaching? Rock on, guys. And this is one that I think. I had Rich Kelts from Kelts Chronicles on last night, and he went through the new hires of the 49ers, and I think he came up with 5 of the new hires actually have or I don't know if it was 5 of the new hires or just the coaches in general, but they have a Super Bowl pedigree coming with them. So I think that they do have the talent in the coaching staff. I really do. I think this is a pretty solid coaching staff, and I'm really interested to see what Brian Greasy ends up doing.
Yeah, I mean, if I look at everything all in, I think that that's another area that they've upgraded. I think they upgraded special teams. I think they upgraded. Let's see, they upgraded special teams. They upgraded the quarterback coaching, in my opinion, and they probably took a step back in the running game. Not only McDaniel, but also Turner. Like, it's hard to replace those guys. Those are 2 really good, but it's not like they got bad in that area. They still brought in great pieces there, right? So it's not like they got really, really bad, but they had like the best of the best. And so now maybe you have top 5, right? It's not horrible, but it is a step back. But overall, I feel like they've done a good job there. And turning over the staff is not the worst thing in the world when you're bringing in high caliber guys, because it is. That's one thing that we talked about with Shanahan. And again, from the moment that I was like, fire this guy, I feel like all the things that I was frustrated with Shanahan with, to me, he's showing that he's turning a new leaf with that. The leadership, the way he talks about guys, the way he interacts with them on the sideline, bringing in guys with fresh ideas that aren't yes men. To me, those were all the gripes that most of us had with him. It was never his play calling, which was always, or I shouldn't say play calling, play design. We knew he was a genius there. We knew he would be probably the best offensive coordinator in the league if that's what he was. It was the head coaching stuff. It was all the extra stuff. That's where I had a gripe. And to me, he hasn't fixed them, but he certainly has made a lot of strides. And that's encouraging. So if I'm going to say, listen, fire the guy at 3-5, get him out, I see leadership issues, then I have to also acknowledge when he's getting better at the things that I was upset with. So kudos to Shanahan. He's also getting better where he should be. So that's great.
Yeah. I feel like just kind of listening to some of what you were saying, that I definitely not having Bobby Turner is a loss and Mike McDaniel is a loss. I feel like the replacement that they chose there is about as good as you can get, given the success that he's had in coaching running backs there. I feel like that's a good move for them. So we'll see how that works out. And in terms of Kyle Shanahan, I agree with you. I don't know. My big issue with him was game management. And so from that standpoint, if you go back and you watch the NFC Championship game and the fact that Deebo Samuel didn't touch the ball over the last 10 minutes or whatever it was, that's a little bit of a kind of the thing that I'm talking about, right? Getting the ball in the hands of your best player. They had shown throughout the game that they could run the screen and be effective and get big chunk plays out of it. Yet when the game was on the line and they were down and they were backed up or tighter and backed up and all that kind of stuff, the screen game wasn't to be seen. And that would have, who knows, and the pass rush was getting there a little bit. Would have just liked to have seen a little bit different play calling out of Shanahan. But at the same time, when you watch the film, again, it goes back to the quarterback. He's got a guy wide open over the middle of the field. He doesn't throw the ball and he starts, whatever. So it's rough it's hard to call a game when you got guys wide open and your quarterback can't get the ball out of his hands. So that's part of the issue there with it. And I have another piece though with Shanahan too. Is I've really I really thought that this year was a really strong year, solid year in terms of his leadership, showing the ability to help this team dig out of the hole that they created for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's you're going to figure out a lot in those situations when you're in a foxhole and things aren't going the way that you expect. You can go one way or the other, and I feel like Shanahan went. He chose the right path. Like he did the right things, and I did. I stopped myself short of saying play calling because I do. I certainly do question some of that. To your
Mhm.
point there, play design is amazing, but yeah, overall, I mean, you really what else can you ask for from 3-5 to an NFC Championship appearance? That's pretty damn good. That's pretty damn good. Like, what else? What else do you want from the guy?
Yeah, it's crazy when you start to go back and you look how close they were after everything that they went through in 2021. Real quick before we run though, I do want to throw this one up because this was what
Mhm.
we this was the name of the show. This is what we told everybody we're going
We
to
should
talk about,
probably get it.
and,
Yeah.
and we should probably get to it before we tell everybody to hit the road. The Deebo Samuel contract. Are they going to show him the money?
Yeah, I do. I think that they're going to show him the money. But what that means, I think people are, believe it or not, maybe overblowing what what he's actually going to get paid. People are now talking about $30+ million. That's not the way that this is going to play out. I would be shocked if that's the case. I said before the season started, or excuse me, before free agency started, that I thought Debo would get around 25 annually, and I still believe that's about the number. And when you look at Hill's contract, you look at it and you say, "Oh man, 4 year 120, that's 30 million a year."
Mhm.
Well, all right, you take a step back and you really look at the deal. It's a 3-year deal that's worth about 28 annually. That final year he goes up to $50 million, but there's an out. You really think it however old he's going to be, 33 at that point, that they're going to pay him $50 million, or do you think that they're going to take the out or rework? Probably more likely that that happens. Then you look at Devonte Adams. I believe it was a 5-year 141. Really, it's a 2-year 26 annually. So
Mhm.
realistically,
Right.
you see these big numbers, and sure, they can seem, oh my gosh, Debo. But Debo's number is going to look big as well. It's going to be
Mhm.
probably 5-year, 125 or whatever, right? And it's going to look gigantic. And he may actually get more guaranteed than those other guys because he is younger. Okay. But the overall annual value, I think, will probably work out to be an average of around 25 million. That's what you can expect. That's what you should have expected all along, in my opinion. But these people that are saying, oh, it's going to be 30, 30, 30, we're, 29, 32, whatever. I really don't see that. I do not. And looking at these other contracts, I don't know how Debo can come to the table and say, I deserve more money than the guy that's been the best receiver in the league for arguably 4 years in a row annually. I don't see how you win that negotiation.
Yeah, I could, maybe when the contract gets announced, it's a just like you said, maybe it's 120 million over 4 years, so it's a $30 million deal. But it's like you said that it's actually more of a $24 million deal when you start to boil down all the numbers that are in it. I mean, shoot, just yesterday they told us that Arden Key signed a 1 year $7 million contract. Well, it's actually 1 year $4 million with $3 million in incentives that he would have to hit in order to maximize that. So that's that's 100%. When you see these contracts, you need to take a step back. You need to wait until the details show up to really know where they are. I think at the end of the day, Debo's money is going to be around 23 to 25. That's kind of been what I've been saying since day one, since we first started talking about it at the end of the season, um, maybe a little before that. So I think that you're going to see him get some big money, but it's not going to be as big as it looks when it's first announced. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where I just want to clear that up for people. We'll see. I mean, maybe we're way off base, but just based off of what we're seeing and what these deals really are, I think that the 49ers are still in an okay spot. They Now that being said, they still have to get out in front of the Cooper Cups and the AJ Browns and the Metcalfs. That would be ideal because those guys, if they start getting paid, then that number probably does go up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. exactly. And Barry Baller says that he thinks it's going to get up to 27 mil per. That's more, that again, that's a number that I think goes above and beyond what the other guys that we've talked about, like Devontae Adams and the Tyreek Hill deals. It goes above them as well. But maybe 27 mil per before you start to break it down. So that'll be interesting to watch. And then Mike asks, what is Bosa going to get? Bosa's going to get more than $30 million. He's going to bust out. He's going to probably, I bet you Nick Bosa ends up around $35 million a year.
That's what I was going to say, especially if he does what I think he's going to do, which is not re-sign the extension this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to probably bet on himself, play really well again, and then with that new league deal coming in,
mm-hmm.
he's going to ask for a lot of money. So yeah, I think he's going to be closer to that 35 annually. I really do.
Yeah, same here. I think it's going to be he's going to reset that market for sure, and that market's already almost at 30, right? Isn't it? With JJ Watt, or not JJ Watt, but TJ Watt wasn't
TJ Watt. Yeah. I think it's around 30. Him and I think his brother even was close to that, if I'm not mistaken. So
okay, yeah. No, and then Kyle asked a question here, and I'm not quite sure what he's asking. Maybe you can. He says, "Would you trade Jimmy for Darnold and picks, then extend him over a few years for a lower cap hit?" Is he saying that? Would you extend Sam Darnold? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, I think so. Like make him your backup quarterback. I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't. No. I would make the trade if that's the best I can get. I don't know, actually. If it was me, I think I would still cut Jimmy before I trade him for Sam Darnold and let's say a fourth or whatever that is. I personally want to save the full amount of money. I think that's more valuable, especially if you can roll it over and double up. So yeah, I'm saving the money if I can.
If I could trade Jimmy Garoppolo to the Carolina Panthers and get Sam Darnold and a second round pick back in 2023 for taking on his money, then I think I might do that.
Okay. That's fair. Second, maybe I might have to I might have to budge on what I said, but that's a high pick.
well, it's kind of like the deal that they did, the Rams and the Lions did, right? The Lions or the Rams had to send some picks too in order for them to take on the quarterback that they were taking on in Jared Goff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? This is fun stuff to take, throw back and forth. But personally, myself, unless I'm getting a second round pick back, no way in heck. I wouldn't want Sam Darnold's $18.5 million. I'd rather have that money to carry over to next year, or like we talked about earlier, trade for somebody mid-year than have Sam Darnold there, especially a guy who you'd be picking up. Let's say this trade, if it did go down in July, if that's when it took place, hasn't even been around for any of the offseason period and is playing catch up all throughout training camp.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm cool on Sam Darnold.
Yeah, no, I looked at Sam Darnold last year because there were some people who were saying that he'd be a good fit for the 49ers and
never saw that.
Yeah, I'd rather have Joe Flacco than Sam Darnold. My gosh.
God, well, that's high praise now.
well, it is. That would be taking an elite quarterback instead of Sam Darnold, right?
Yeah. That's yeah, exactly.
Hello, is this thing working? Yeah. So that's it for the show for tonight, and we did finally get to Deebo for you. What have you got going on here, Jesse?
Yeah, I've actually got my show here in 25 minutes with my co-host over at Last Second Sports. Check that out. We're going to talk about how the league has really changed in the matter of just a couple seasons because of what the Rams have done. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that. We're going to talk some 49ers, talk some Lions. So tap in over there. And like I said, 25 minutes, we'll be live.
Sweet. Yeah, and while you're here real quick, before you go over to Jesse's channel, make sure you first hit the subscribe button here, hit the like button, and then hit the little bell thing. So there's 3 things I want you to do there, right? Subscribe, like, and then hit the little bell thing so you never miss when we go live. Then go get over to Last Second Sports. Make sure you subscribe to Jessie, and also take that picture and enter the contest so you can win Joe Montana's jersey. So that'd be pretty sweet as well. So,
yes, sir.
I will be back tomorrow night. Tomorrow I have a show with Aaron. So Aaron Labigan, who everybody knows as, I'm blank on his
49ers First Takes.
Thank you. 49ers First Takes. Usually he's here. I didn't see him tonight. Usually he's in our comments section. So from 49ers First Takes, Aaron Labigan, he'll be on with me tomorrow. Looking forward to that. And then next week will be jam-packed again. So thanks everybody for taking the time to watch us tonight, and we'll be back soon. Take care, everybody. Don't worry.